Welcome back to In Pursuit of Magic, where we explore the things that inspire us, connect us, and the magic we find along the way. I'm Matthew Medina. Today's very special guest is an incredibly talented actress, singer, and dancer who's been part of some iconic stage productions such as A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, Rent, In the Heights, and Hunchback of Notre Dame. She's currently in A Midsummer Night's Dream as part of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival through October 25th. I'm very excited to welcome Alysia Noelle Beltran. Alysia, thank you so much for being on. And yet, you have an incredible resume of so many productions you've been part of. It's amazing just to see that so far you've kind of crossed a lot of your maybe possible bucket list of like amazing shows that you've been able to perform in.
Absolutely, yeah, everything from, Disney princess to classics like In the Heights, and then doing truly more classical style musical theater like Gentleman's Guide. I think I've gotten to use so much of my range in my in just the last, like, 7 years or so, so I'm so grateful for all the opportunities that have come my way. But that just goes down to, training and getting to dabble in a little bit of everything, growing up, starting in, all kinds of dance and taking voice lessons and taking really good care of my voice. That's all part of, uh, yeah, just getting to do a little bit of everything is just so important to me.
Absolutely. And I think it's amazing you mentioned taking dance lessons and taking care of your voice as it's all part of like the training and preparing yourself to do everything that you're doing. Which brings me to ask, because you've been in so many productions that are well known, were there any that really inspired you when you were younger that made you think, you know what, I want to be a performer. I want to sing, I want to dance, I
Oh
want to act.
gosh. Yeah, this is gonna sound really corny, but I grew up going to Disneyland every year with my parents and getting to see this live storytelling. That was my first, exposure to live storytelling, getting to see these parades and the live performers in Fantasmic and the Hyperion Theater, getting to see Aladdin at the Hyperion. Those were all really formative to me as an arts goer, as a theater goer. Like I said, it's my first exposure to live storytelling. And ever since then I realized I really want to do that. So growing up, my sister loved Rent, diehard Rent head, and we played that DVD all the time in our house. And so that became a huge formative piece for me. Seeing Rosario Dawson playing Mimi, I was like, "Oh my gosh, there is space for brown girls in this genre of live storytelling." So Rent easily became one of my favorite musicals. So that's kind of what inspired me to be an actor, be a performer.
That's amazing because I think, well, first of all, Rent is such a formative piece of art that has inspired a lot of people to get into performing. So I think it's very relatable. And I think the Disney side of things is also very relatable. I'm a huge Disney fan, grew up going to the parks. And I think you're not alone in it inspiring you to wanting to get into performing and acting. I just found out actress Emily Rudd, who's in the One Piece show, was friends with Wendy in the parks, and now
Oh my
she's on a
gosh.
Netflix show. So yeah, it's just amazing how that can be the first spark of magic that makes you see what
Mhm.
live storytelling can be and how fun that is. So that's amazing that you were inspired by so many things that come from different areas and different backgrounds, but kind of just form this new way of storytelling that I think is very magical, makes things feel real and alive for people. And in that experience and I guess starting to perform and getting on stage, was there ever a moment that stood out to you where you were like, wow, like this is what I've been feeling inside my soul, like, and I want to keep doing this.
It's funny, I grew up doing a lot of dance, taking voice lessons, yada, yada, yada. It wasn't until high school when we were putting all of the pieces together, you're acting, singing, and dancing at the same time. We did a production of Les Mis in high school and, getting to sing these huge vocal arrangements with a live orchestra was really like, there is so much more potential. There's so much possibility. It really tickled my brain getting to hear all of these sounds come together, make this really unique experience, So I would say, yeah, that was kind of the moment where I was like, actually, I think this is it.
It's funny how those moments happen where sometimes I think they sneak up on you and others they may take you by surprise. And there's so many different elements that can make an experience feel magical. And I'm wondering, working alongside an ensemble of other cast members or even dancers, what were the magical moments for you in all your experiences that really stood out the most? Was it kind of the rehearsal? Was it the performing? Was it after the fact?
Gosh, I would say going back to this production of Les Mis, it's high school. We're also vulnerable and we've got big feelings. So I think theater was such a safe place for me. Getting to go to rehearsals every day, and high school was definitely like a place that I found comfort. That I found I got to just be a person, especially in the theater space. I think that young people in theatrical settings. I think that we express things in different ways. We feel things so profoundly, and theater just ended up being the perfect vessel for all of those feelings. And so it was a bit of both. I would say the rehearsing, the performing, and getting to have all of our friends come and all of our family members come and see us put on this production of, you know, not like incredible groundbreaking art, but something that we had put so much love and care into. I think it was a bit of both for me. So both the rehearsal process and the performing process.
Yeah, that's beautiful because I think, like you said, especially in theater, there's this method of feeling things so deeply and so like genuinely and kind of in a vulnerable way. And it shows on stage and performances, but I think a lot happens also behind the scenes, just going through that process and stepping into those roles, whether it's through song or dance or acting. And I can imagine that in your normal life, when you're not performing, those emotions carry through, whether it's the highs or the lows. And there's a lot of obstacles sometimes that come in your way, whether it's a closed door or a missed opportunity or what feels like a missed opportunity. And I'm wondering, in those moments when they come up, how do you overcome them and keep your fire lit to keep going?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of the saying that, every oh, what is the saying? Every, closed door, as they say, becomes a new opportunity, right? Every no is just leading up to the yes. Especially as an actor, we hear so many no's, so many no's. That it's just constantly reminding yourself that it's all making way for what's to come, and what's meant to be is meant to be. What's meant for you is meant for you and will be yours, and knowing that sometimes doors close for a reason, right? That path was never meant to be yours, right? And as much as we want it to be, as much as we feel like, oh, that was so supposed to be me, I was supposed to be doing this right now, it's always making way for something bigger and better.
Absolutely. I think that's an important piece of advice because so many times we get wrapped up in what we think is our next step or what we think would be the best thing for us, and we don't know what's actually lying ahead that may be even better. And sometimes a
Mhm.
swerve leads us to something that we didn't even dream of being a possibility, which I think is a beautiful thing too. And I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who have a dream, whether it's in the creative and performing space or something else, and often get disheartened by obstacles or and not hearing back or not knowing what their next step is. And I was wondering what advice you would give to those people.
What advice would I give to those people? Just keep working, keep on chugging. It's all part of our jobs is, the audition is the submission, right? I can't remember. There was a film actor, I believe it was Tom Hanks, maybe not Tom Hanks, but he liked to remind himself that auditioning is the job, right? Of course, acting, performing is the job, but also auditioning is part of the process. As long as you treat it as, "This is my shift at the audition room," this is part of what I do for a living, and I have taken that so close to heart. As much as auditions can be this nerve-wracking process of, days and days of preparation, and then the early mornings and all of this, it is part of what we do. It is so important to keep that muscle fresh, and constantly be, working towards that, yeah, working towards this audition muscle.
Yeah, I think it's very important to keep in mind about auditioning being part of the process, no matter what the result is. Like it's part of the work and part of the job. And I personally believe every audition also for people is practice. It's getting that room, it's taking the courage to step inside that room or film a video
Mhm.
and do your thing and show what you have to offer. And kind of remembering that sometimes it has nothing to do with you. They're looking for something very specific, and what you have to offer is meant for something else. And it's just
Absolutely.
amazing seeing people's journeys and hearing people's stories and experiences. And I'm sure that's happened to you plenty of times. But then seeing like all the roles you've been able to be a part of is also a beautiful thing too. Because I'm like, wow, like you found your place.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for all of these opportunities. I'm currently in Southern Oregon, and one of the many side hustles that I do is I'm a casting coordinator for the Ashland New Plays Festival. And so being behind the table gave me all of this insight. Casting directors, casting folks, producers all want you to do well in the room. They're always hoping that you're exactly what they're looking for. They always want you, have the best performance. They want you to do your best and leave feeling good about what you did. So auditions now getting to have this perspective of the other side of the table definitely takes a lot of weight off because it's allowed me to focus on I'm just going to prepare. I'm just going to do my best and I'm going to be as prepared as possible. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that answered the question, though. What was the question?
No, I think it did. I think it's amazing that you've been able to now experience the other side of the table because I think it does add a lot of
Yeah,
perspective for you and kind of helps you to tell others how to walk away from something like that when maybe they are feeling disheartened and just to let them know like no one wants to see you fail. That's the thing. Like everyone wants
exactly.
you to succeed and do your thing. And I think it's also amazing hearing stories of people who maybe you weren't right for that or you didn't get that, but they're like, they had something and I think there's this other role they'd be great for, or they keep them in mind for a different production. And I think that happens a lot. And sometimes it's a lot of keeping people in mind and looking out for each other. I think community is a big thing, especially in theater, and plays a big part of that. How has community kind of been something in your life that has really been such a benefit and something to lean on?
Gosh, community is everything. Like I said, I'm living in Southern Oregon right now. So I'm not originally from here. I moved here 8 years ago, and community is something that I've had to lean on really heavy. In 2020, during the shutdown, I was going to therapy, and my therapist was like, well, I know you want to be doing theater. I know you want to be doing work right now, but everything's shut down. And, I was feeling really disheartened. And he was like, why don't we reach out to these places and just offer a hand? Maybe they need a little bit of help on, I don't know, business stuff or, whatever. And so keeping these relationships alive has been such a vital part of my career of where I am today. I've developed a really great relationship with the theaters in the area. I've been with the Oregon Shakespeare Festival for 5 years now. I've gotten to do work with the Oregon Cabaret Theater. And I like to attribute that to just forming these really intimate relationships with the folks who run these programs, like Val Rochelle at the Oregon Cabaret. Constantly inviting them to see my community theater productions and making sure that I'm still staying in touch and making sure they're keeping me in mind for all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I think community is so important. Not only that, I've made really great relationships with my fellow actors here at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, for the actors who come in and out of town, to Southern Oregon for these productions. Yeah, community is just so important. And not only that, I've formed relationships with people outside of theater, and they have become really important people to me who are, constantly a part of my life, especially outside of theater. Having like non-theater friends is also really important so that every time you get together, you're not, talking about the show that you're doing. You have other things to talk about. I have a friend who we talk about gardening all the time, or I've got a sourdough buddy, so not only theater community, but also non-theater community.
I think that's amazing, and, I think it's also shows the importance of forming these connections and remembering that, like, we're all people just trying to do our thing and trying to make a dream come true, and, I had another guest who also talked about the importance of having groups of people that you could be around, like, outside of what you're doing, because in those low lows sometimes, it's hard not to define yourself by what's going on or what's not going on. And so to have different areas of your life that you can just throw yourself into and be passionate about and love and share with other people is always a reminder that you're more than one thing and you're so many different things. And sometimes, yeah, being around other people is a good reminder of that and a good anchor. And I think also the connections that you form within that space are so important because it's nice to be able to lean on each other or think of each other for different things and kind of form new bonds and experiences. All that it seems like for you started with a suggestion from someone else that maybe you wouldn't have thought of on your own, which I think is also a beautiful thing. It shows like we may be seeing the world in one way, and it takes someone else to suggest, well, what if you go this path? And it takes us far beyond what we thought was possible. And I think that is part of the magic. And we've talked a little bit about magic and especially about Disney, which you have a love for, and so do I. And so seeing a part that you've been a part of a Hunchback of Notre Dame as Esmeralda must have been such an experience for you. So tell me a little bit about that and what that felt like stepping into those shoes.
Gosh, I grew up watching The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the VHS. I wore out that VHS tape. I Gosh, I remember seeing Esmeralda and just being absolutely mesmerized as a child. She's just this graceful character on screen, and she cares about the people in her community, the people who are being mistreated, the people who are being left out. And so obviously I connect to her in that way. And so getting to perform Esmeralda as an actor, in a professional production with other professional actors, with a live band, with a beautiful set in this adorable theater in San Francisco, in my community too, was so profound. It was, just this stark reminder of this is why we put in the hours. This is why we work so hard. My first audition for the production, I remember walking away going, "Oh God, that didn't go the way that I wanted it to." I wasn't feeling great. And so not only to get called back for it, but then be offered the role was really just a pinch me moment that not everything has to go the way that you planned it. Not everything has to go perfectly. This was a production in San Francisco, where I'm from. I remember getting in the car and just being like, "Oh, I don't think that went the way that I wanted it to." But, not only to get called back for it, but to be offered the role was just a reminder that not everything has to go the way that you planned it to for things to turn out the way that you hope. It's just a reminder that what's meant for you is meant for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think something that's beautiful about that production too is, I mean, the heart and soul of it that's in it, but just all the messages in it and everything that carries through. And I think it's a shame that, well, at least from what I've heard, it wasn't making its way to Broadway only because of the cost of having like a full choir, which they really wanted. Without it,
Yeah.
it just doesn't work. Like you need that. But I think as a testament to what you're saying, like, yeah, I think life often doesn't work out the way you think. And I think sometimes it's for the better. And I think it's amazing also because maybe you can say from experience now that you've been on the other side of a casting table, but it's just so interesting that you went out from that room thinking that you didn't do that well and it wasn't the way you wanted to present yourself. And yet you made an impression that were like, this is our Esmeralda. So I think that's such a beautiful thing. And what does that mean for you now on getting to be part of casting for other productions?
Getting to be part of casting for other productions. Yeah, I think especially in the casting room, I think there are days, there are times when as an actor, I know I can see like, oh, this person wasn't feeling well. Like this person is definitely sick or something. Or like there's often more grace, especially like as an actor coming from the other side of the table. There's so much more grace. And even if, your two monologues don't go well, or like your monologue and your song don't go well, the casting team often sees, potential further past your audition, right? So they might say, actually, can you send us a tape of, XYZ? Or can you actually, just put that on tape, put your monologue on tape so that we can, share it with the casting team, whatever. And because there's always more to the story.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a beautiful thing to be part of that process for you now where you get to experience that and take on that role and understand what may be going on in that room with the person auditioning. And I think also just we talk a little bit about community and I think telling other people's stories or letting people share theirs or shine and bring what they have into the room is such a beautiful thing. For me, I think In the Heights is such an example of stories being told by different people and all their different paths and each of their dreams and getting to see that, especially from Lin Manuel and showing a community of people who aren't often represented, especially not enough. And it's an iconic show that you were a part of, playing Nina. And Nina is such a sought after role, I think, also because it's such a personal story for so many people. And I think it's such a relatable experience. And so, what was it like for you to step into those shoes? And what do you think are elements of the show and the character that you connect to personally?
Getting to do Nina was a dream, something that I had manifested for years and years and years. And so getting to audition for that part in the first place was definitely part of that dream. I was like, they they're seeing what I'm seeing in me. And then getting offered the role, getting to do the part. It's a story that I connect to so personally. So getting to sing these words every night for 8 shows a week was something that I hold so dear to my heart, especially gosh, Mandy Gonzalez built this beautiful vocal part that was just not only a challenge, but like something that I've grown so much from. My preparation is different now. The way that I get ready for a show is different now. So not only just the character pieces, but the physical, the discipline. But getting to do this show, getting to do In the Heights was such a dream come true. The music is so beautiful. Getting to do it with a live band, getting to do it with 14 of my friends was amazing, or at least people I call friends now. And yeah. So I don't know. There's nothing like it. I'm at a loss for words here because it is s- such a beautiful show. Getting to be with a bunch of brown people for like 3 months was amazing, and I actually got to do it here in Southern Oregon, so I wasn't far from home. And
So
getting to bring this story to Southern Oregon was so beautiful. We have really thriving Latino community here, but not a lot of theater for Latinos. And so getting to do this show in this community was just it was a bit of a homecoming, even though this is my home. It was getting to bring this to the people that I love, to the community that I love, and um yeah, there was nothing like it.
it's amazing. And it sounds similar. I've talked to a couple of people who have done productions in Puerto Rico, and they say it's such a different experience from doing it somewhere else because the theater is limited there. And then doing a show like In the Heights, of course, it's a whole other experience because your audience is connecting to it so fully. And I think that that's such a
Yeah,
beautiful thing to be a part of. And it seems like such a pivotal part of any actor's journey. I think when you have a Latin background, and it's just such a beautiful thing. And I love hearing people's experiences with it because there's so many people I've talked to have been like, oh, yeah, I did it In the Heights. And just seeing it on people's resumes and everyone walking away from it somehow changed. And I think that's part of the
absolutely.
beauty.
Getting to not only do it here in my community, but I got to bring my family out from San Francisco to see this show, and they love In the Heights. They're theater goers now, and In the Heights is one of their favorite shows too. So not only getting my parents to see it, but getting my grandma to see it here in Southern Oregon with a bunch of Latinos, getting to have this conversation that didn't have to be translated was just it brings me like I've got the warm fuzzies all over just thinking about it.
It's funny, you describing that just now just made me think of Nina's journey and how Nina was viewing herself for most of the show and how she ended up looking at herself in the end. And so it makes me curious for you, that experience getting to perform, but then having your family there, having your community there, having your grandma there. Did you walk away from it seeing yourself differently?
Absolutely. Southern Oregon, we have a thriving Latino community here, but when I first moved here, it's um not as diverse as San Francisco. And so bringing this show to Southern Oregon, um I was a little nervous about it because I was like, how is this community going to respond? They don't, a lot of these people don't speak Spanish. They don't I don't know if they're going to get it, right? Um but after the show, I realized there's so many of my people here. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. Like, they all came out of the woodworks. Playwright Octavio Solis is based out of Medford, out of Ashland, Oregon, and he came to see the show. And I remember being like, "What?" And he we he's a dear friend now, but back then I was just so shocked. I was like, "Oh my gosh." But it was this reminder that like we need more stories like this. We need to be able to see ourselves on stage. So getting to be Nina in this production, of course, she starts to so conflicted. She's feeling like a disappointment to her family, to her community, but then realizing just because things didn't go her way doesn't mean that it's not going to pan out, right? She gets to, go back to school. She gets to go back and achieve this dream that she's been working towards her whole life, which I couldn't agree with more, right? I'm getting to act full time in a teeny tiny community in Southern Oregon. Yeah, gosh, Nina's story is couldn't be more relevant to where I was then, where I am now. And I just, by the end of the story, just coming into her own. And yeah, I think a lot of us could relate. And I'm so grateful that like it came to me at just the right time.
That's beautiful, and I think it shows that theater and storytelling in general not just changes the audience, but the performers and those that are a part of that story. So I think it's a beautiful thing. And now you're still in Oregon, but part of A Midsummer Night's Dream, which is classic Shakespeare. And wondering what that experience has been like for you and kind of performing such a classic work of art that's a long stretch too. It's through October. So it must be also kind of like I always say performers are like Olympic athletes, just everything they have to put themselves through and the long stretches and the amount of performances. And I think when you're part of something for such a long stretch, absolutely that too. So what has that been like for you?
Yeah, well, I'm part of the repertory acting company at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. So while I am doing A Midsummer Night's Dream, I'm also learning my understudy track for Come From Away and two other understudy tracks in Emma. And so through the week we're rotating our schedules. I think we had three performances of Midsummer Night's Dream last week, and then just a couple of rehearsals for my understudy tracks. We started rehearsals for Emma this week, and 2 days ago we had our first understudy performance in Come From Away. My friend Sarone Jones, who is playing or is covering the Kevins and Bob. He went on for one of the Kevins a couple days ago, which was so exciting. Our understudy company, being part of the repertory company, we all have at least one understudy track. I think most of us do at least. And so it's always a question of not if, but when you'll go on. And so Midsummer, while it does run through October, I also have two other shows that are running through October. So I get a nice variety throughout the week. One moment I'm doing Shakespeare, one moment I'm doing a contemporary musical, and another moment I'm doing a Jane Austen classic with a feminist contemporary twist. So it's definitely talk about range, right? Getting to do a little bit of everything within the span of a week. But yes, but going back to Midsummer has been, for lack of a better word, such a dream. Getting to do Shakespeare at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. There's nothing like it. I'm amongst a cast of, seasoned vets and also young new actors, right? And so getting all of these voices in the room to put on this beautiful, beautiful production has been, um, I'm back to it. It has been a dream. So I feel like I'm learning so much from not only our vets, but from these new voices. And I'm so grateful to kind of be in the middle this time. For the last couple seasons, I'm used to being like the freshest voice in the room. So getting to do Midsummer Night's Dream this year has been definitely an adventure. We got to work with Marcela Lorca. She's a Latina, she's a director. And so when I was offered this part, I was like, heck yeah. So getting to put our own twist on A Midsummer Night's Dream has been really inspiring. It's just a reminder that Shakespeare, just because it was written, so many hundred years ago, doesn't mean it's irrelevant, right? These are reflections of humanity. And quite honestly, like they're stories that we come back to because they stay relevant, right? The course of true love never ran smooth, right? I believe that's the quote that Lysander says in the beginning of the show. And I also think it's a reminder that there is whimsy in every corner of our lives, right? These magical fairy characters come out of nowhere, and then Oberon is casting these magic spells, and Puck is just messing with everybody. It's been really fun. And Justin Huertas, who is playing our Puck, composed a bunch of new music. Justin Huertas, who wrote Lizard Boy, if you're familiar, wrote a bunch of music for the show. So I get to sing music written by Justin Huertas, which is such a dream. Back to it. And it's just been one heck of a ride. I'm so lucky to be a part of it.
It's incredible, and it sounds like not just because of the material that you're part of, but the people that you're doing it with, which I think is such a beautiful thing too. And the fact that you're doing multiple productions at once, also, like I said, you're like an athlete, and I think it prepares you for so many other things and whatever your next step is. I mean, there's always going to be something else and something new, and I feel like when someone's taking on so much at once, it's showing, like you said, range and how much they're capable of. And I hope that you have been proud of yourself and surprised yourself with how much you're capable of doing, because it just shows that you can do even more probably, and you don't even know it yet. So I think that's part of the magic of that. And like you said, whimsy around every corner. I think these experiences happen for a reason, and you meet the right people for a reason. And I think it's a matter of us choosing to go after those moments and connect with those good, right people, because I think that's part of the beauty of creating, of storytelling, of art in general, and just human connection, like you said. And talking about magic, I'm curious where you find magic most in your life, whether it's on or off the stage.
Where I find magic most in my life, I would say both, especially on stage. We tell these stories up to 8 times a week, right? But the one thing that changes every performance is the audience. And so getting to see their reactions, the way that they connect with the piece in so many different ways, from Tuesday to Wednesday, it's a totally different group and they are picking up on things that the Tuesday group didn't get, that the Thursday group won't get, right? And so getting to see what inspires the audience is, I think, the most magic. And not only that, working at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, we have a really robust education program. So, every once in a while, I'll lead a tour or lead a talk back and get to connect with these school groups really intimately, right? I get to hear what they connected with the most, what they're walking away still thinking about. And I think there's so much magic in that remembering that I was once in their shoes, right? Growing up, I got to see, The Odd Couple at a local high school and going, that was so funny. I think I want to do that. And so getting to see this inspiration in them, this drive when you're that age and you've got so much energy and so much motivation and so much space for inspiration that there's literally nothing like it. So getting to see this in kind of this like full circle moment is so magical. Outside of theater, getting to see, I mean, I'm a hobby gardener. I love to garden. There is so much magic in, gosh, and like take this as literally as you want or as metaphorically as you want, but getting to watch these seeds come to life, right? We spend so much time in the spring planting all of these seeds, hoping that they'll grow. And by July or August, we've got these beautiful fruits, flowers, all kinds of stuff. And as literally or metaphorically as you'd like, take it what you will, gosh, yeah, so much magic all around. And yeah.
Yeah, I think both are true in the beauty of it, the literal and the metaphorical. And it sounds like that's a lot of what you experience also within the world of theater, and planting seeds and seeds being planted in you, and connections with others being seeds that grow into something beautiful. And so my last question is, how do you hope to create magic for others?
How do I hope to create magic for others? Going back to, gosh, I had a friend in high school and his their like leading principle was aspire to inspire. I have always wanted to create more space for Latinos, for people of color in theater, and getting to be a person of color in a Shakespeare at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. I just hope that, you know, people who look like me, who feel like, they can see themselves on stage. I just hope that I get to be that reminder of they have a space, in theater. So that's how I hope to create magic.
Absolutely. Well, I'm inspired by you. We need more people like you on stage, storytelling, and also in those casting rooms. So I'm very happy about everything you're doing and excited. I'm going to drop links below your Instagram and tickets for the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. But I'm so excited with everything you're up to. It just sounds like you are creating a lot of magic. And so thank you for being on. It's been a pleasure, Alycia. Like, I love hearing about your experiences and how magical your journey has been.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And everyone out there, if you're listening, I hope you're inspired as I am and go out there and do some magic. See you next time.